Hi, everybody. My name is Tom.
And I'm Stephanie.
And this is English Digest, and we welcome you to the month of May. And we've got lots of interesting topics to discuss with you, so let's get to it. We begin the month of May with our unit on society. And maybe you've been to an amusement park before and ridden on the rides like the roller coaster, the Ferris wheel, and the carousel.
The spinning cups, the spinning teacups, maybe the bumper cars. I've done all of those.
Indeed.
And today we're talking about a carousel, or it's often referred to as a merry-go-round in America, at least. I know the Brits like to use this, the noun carousel to describe a merry-go-round. But this particular carousel of happiness is very special. We're going to talk about it, explain why it has this name, and who came up with it.
Indeed. So the Carousel of Happiness lives up to its name. Let's find out what this is all about. Let's listen now to our lesson. In a small town in Colorado, there is a carousel. Carousels aren't uncommon, but this one is special. The Carousel of Happiness in the town of Nederland is the passion project of a man named Scott Harrison. He fought in Vietnam as a U.S. Marine and was injured both mentally and physically by his experience. One thing that brought him peace during the fighting was a music box mechanism that his sister gifted to him. Listening to its simple melody, he pictured a green meadow with a carousel and felt calm. Years later, when he heard that the machinery of a carousel was for sale, he bought it and began carving replacement animals for its missing animals. Even though he had never carved before, he nevertheless produced a unique collection of cheerful animals. His carousel boasts a dolphin, a rabbit, and a gorilla, among others. The welcoming gorilla holds out one arm to embrace a space large enough for a wheelchair. This is one of the creative ways that Harrison has made the carousel inviting and more accessible. With hard work and dedication, he brought his dream of peace to life, and now shares that peace and joy with as many people as possible through the Carousel of Happiness.
Hi guys, we are ready to get the discussion started. I'll start first. Our title here has one of our vocabulary terms, lives up to. It's a phrase we use to talk about being as good as someone had expected it to be, or having the qualities that you expected or hoped for. We also use it for something else, but that's in a minute. So the Carousel of Happiness is the name of this carousel we're talking about today that a man has actually produced, and we're going to talk about him. But it's living up to its name. If it lives up to its name, look at the name, the Carousel of Happiness. That means this merry-go-round or carousel is actually making people happy. So it's living up to its name. It's doing what someone predicted it would do or hoped it would do.
It's doing what its name suggests it should do. So if you say that, Mr. Johnson is generous and he does give money to charity, then we'll say that he lives up to his name as being a generous person. So in this particular case, indeed, the Carousel of Happiness is spreading happiness throughout the world. Let's focus now on the U.S. state of Colorado. In a small town in Colorado, there is a carousel. And of course, Colorado is famous for the Rocky Mountains and the city of Denver and Pueblo and the University of Colorado in Boulder and places like that.
Skiing.
Skiing as well, Vail, Steamboat,
Great skiing.
Aspen, etc.
Yeah.
Those are all various ski resorts in Colorado. But we're talking about a small town in the state of Colorado, and there is a carousel there. But that's not so special because carousels aren't uncommon. They are all over the place. So why should we mention this one? Well, it is special. This one is special. The Carousel of Happiness in the town of Nederland is the passion project of a man named Scott Harrison. Passion here just refers to a strong feeling you have for something. You might have a passion, like maybe knitting is your passion. My mother really liked doing needlepoint, which is a kind of knitting, I guess. So that was her passion.
It's a craft, I guess. It's an arts and craft. It's not really a kind of knitting.
Yeah, it uses a needle and yarn, so I thought maybe it's like knitting, but it's not really the same thing.
If anyone's heard of embroidery before, it's kind of a stronger string than we sew clothes with, but you can use different colors and it makes up a picture based on the pattern of your needle. It's kind of cool. I've done needlepoint too. I'm not as good, I'm sure, as your mom is or used to be. So, wow. Anyway, we've got different kinds of passions that people like. I'm passionate about music. I use that word as an adjective. You're passionate about something or you have a passion for something. Both Tom and I have a passion for music. We love music. So this is a passion project, something that really involved his heart, something that he went about trying to accomplish that project. And the name of the guy we're talking about in this particular lesson is Scott Harrison.
Now, he fought in Vietnam as a U.S. Marine and was injured both mentally and physically by his experience. If you know history, the United States fought a war in Vietnam, and of course, lots of people were killed in that war or they experienced pretty traumatic things while they were there. So he was injured both mentally and physically. If you're injured, you are hurt some way. Maybe he was shot or he was cut up or blown up by a mine or something like that. So he was injured both mentally and physically. Mentally means in his mind, so he's probably disturbed by the things he saw there, people getting killed, children suffering and stuff like that. And he was mentally injured by that experience, and he probably had bad dreams and post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that.
Notice we're using it with the be verb. He was injured. Usually, if you're using it with the be verb, to be, it just means something else hurt you. You didn't hurt yourself. But we also use it without the be verb. For example, I could say, I injured my finger this morning in the door. I shut the door too quickly and it caught my finger. So you can be injured or injure yourself, both mentally and physically, with Scott's experience. It's really hard to be in the Army. He was in a part of the Army we call the Marines. They're pretty tough guys. They usually go in first in some of these battles that we face around the world. But he was injured both mentally and physically, as Tom said. So one thing that brought him peace or made him feel better during the fighting when he was over there in Vietnam was a music box mechanism that his sister gifted to him or that his sister gave him as a present or as a gift. Mechanism here just means related to something mechanical or part of a machine or machinery. A music box usually is the kind of thing that when you lift up a lid on a box, it plays a song. And usually little girls get these when they're growing up to put their little pieces of jewelry inside. I have several music boxes that my mom gave me growing up. So a music box was something that when he heard the music, it gave him a lot of peace. And remember, it came from his sister.
And remember, it wasn't the whole music box. It was just the mechanism, the part that had the machine or the moving parts, so it didn't have the dancing ballerina or stuff like that. It was just the mechanism. But still, that was good enough. Listening to its simple melody, he pictured a green meadow with a carousel, and he felt calm as a result. So yes, music boxes can sound quite relaxing when you listen to them, and it's completely mechanical. You wind it up, and it starts spinning and it plays an old melody or something like that in the good old summertime or something like that. And so he listened to that tune and it made him feel calm and relaxed.
I wanted to mention before we go on, you can actually pronounce carousel two different ways. You can say carousel or carousel with the emphasis on the second syllable there, carousel. Oh, that's the third syllable. So we'll probably go back and forth. I say it both ways. So they're both correct, just in case you're wondering about that or if you heard a difference between us. So moving on to paragraph 2, it says, years later, This just means after the war has ended, he's returned home, years after that experience in Vietnam. When he heard that the machinery of a carousel was for sale, he bought it and began carving replacement animals for its missing animals. So it's got some parts that are missing. We can see here from the sentence that the missing parts happen to be those animals. If you've seen a merry-go-round or carousel, you know that it goes around in a circle and it usually has horses. I was going to say horsies, which we say as kids. Oh, I want to sit on a horsey. And your mom or dad would plop you on top of that horse. And sometimes it would go up and down and you'd hold on to that pole that kept it in place. And, you thought that was fun when you were 2 or 3, maybe 4. Then you wanted to go on more exciting rides after that. But he heard that there was an old carousel that was not being used anymore at an amusement park or a state park. Sometimes we have these state fairs, we call them in America, where they'll have a couple of pieces of equipment that come into town. We go there to eat yummy food, like your night markets. We have that kind of yummy food at a state fair. And there are also some rides like a roller coaster or a merry-go-round. Well, he heard that there was one carousel that was just being sold off, but it had some problems on it.
It only had the machinery, basically. It did not have the horses and the dolphins and the decorations and stuff like that. So, yes, it's the mechanical parts that you don't see. That's the machinery, and that would be similar to the mechanism. They're basically the same thing, and he heard that machinery was for sale, and he bought it and began carving replacement animals for its missing animals. Now, of course, if something's made out of wood and you want to make it into a kind of statue, you will carve that wood, and the resulting artwork is called a carving. So, of course, I understand that Miaoli is famous for its carvings. You can go down there and buy some things that are carved out of wood and things like that. And in this particular case, we're using the word carve as a verb. So he started to cut into the wood. He started carving replacement animals for the animals that were missing on the carousel.
I guess that carousel was so old that some of its animals had too many accidents.
The wood rotted and stuff like that.
Things get old. So he went about carving some replacement animals. A replacement is something that takes the place of something else. We're going to talk more about how Scott Harrison came up with his Carousel of Happiness, guys. But first, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。不知道你喜不喜欢坐旋转木马呢？我们今天要来看一下幸福旋转木马的故事哦。好，那么地点是在哪里呢？地点是在美国的 Colorado， 这里有一个小镇啊，它这一座旋转木马很特别哦，因为在这个小镇里面，旋转木马是一个叫做 Scott Harrison 用热情来完成的作品。好，那么今天我们这个文章呢是设计成克漏字，接着我们就来看一下这个 Scott Harrison 到底有什么特别呢？其实他本来是美国海军陆战队在越南作战的一个军人，不过因为当时作战这些经验，让他在精神跟身体上都受伤了。那么当时在战争当中，能够带给他平静的一件事情，就是他姐姐送他的音乐盒。我们来看一下第一段，在第4句这个地方，这里呢有2个限定用法的关系子句。那么第4句的第一个关系子句呢，先行词就是一开始的 one thing， 后面 that 到 fighting 的地方，我们可以左右括号。不过这先行词 one thing 是一个不确定的一个东西，所以官代通常都会用 that。那么另外一个限定用法的关系子句出现在 was 的后面，先行词是 a music box mechanism。那么这样子的一个先行词之后，带的还是限定用法的关系子句 that 到句尾的地方，限定了这个 music box mechanism 是姐姐送给她的这个东西。那么接下来就到我们第一题咯。第一题其实是考你分词构句，那么第一题就出现在第一段的第5句的地方。其实它的中文的意思是，当他听着音乐盒简单的旋律的时候，他就会想象绿色的草地上有一座旋转木马，所以就感到很平静。好，那么这句的分词构句如果还原，我们会发现它其实是一个 when 连接词的省略， 也就是说，第一格本来是 when he listened， 那么分词构句就是把连接词第一步删除掉。如果没有 when 这个连接词，句子不可能出现两个动词，所以 listened 就会变成 listening。而 he 其实就是逗点之后的 he， 也就是我们的主角 Scott Harrison， 所以主词都一样的情况之下 he 就会省略掉，所以第一题这个分词构句变成 listening to its simple melody， 第一题就会选 C。好，那么当时呢是一个这样子的状况，但是在多年之后，当他听说有一座旋转木马机器要出售，就立刻买下来，然后开始为一些缺少的动物雕刻所谓什么样的动物呢？接下来我们看到第二题，它就出现在我们第二段的第一句的地方。其实这个第二题我们跟后面的 missing animals 有文意上的关联性，那么就是因为有一些动物不见了，所以它就要雕刻一些作为替代的动物，所以语义上其实就暗指了这个 replacement， 所以第二题答案选 B。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about the Carousel of Happiness. Remember, a carousel is a ride that they have at fairs and in amusement parks. I think I've seen 3 carousels here in Taiwan. One at Ocean Park in Hualien, one at Liufucun, and the other one in the old children's amusement park, which is very close to the Yuanshan Hotel there, the Grand Hotel up in Shilin there. I think it's still there, although it's not being used. And, of course, carousels are pretty common in the United States and other countries, so that's why we say they aren't uncommon, but we've got this very special Carousel of Happiness. It belongs to Scott Harrison. Remember, he was a Vietnam veteran, and he was injured mentally and physically. And his sister had given him a music box mechanism, and it helped him deal with his pain and his mental problems that he felt after a result of that experience. And then later on, he bought the machinery of a carousel and started carving replacement animals for it.
Well, I'm looking at a picture of the Carousel of Happiness, and he's a great artist, I must say.
Learned fast.
Wow. He probably had the gift of art before he even started this carving of the animals.
Might have those sensibilities already built in. I think a lot of people do have artistic sensibilities.
You do, I don't.
But you need to develop them, and I guess, he was able to develop his skills, and he carved some interesting animals as a result.
They're so cute. Yeah. They're really adorable. You should take a look. They're very bright and colorful, which always is fun for kids. They like colorful things. Now, even though he had never carved before, which is amazing, he nevertheless, or even though that's true, the following is also true. He produced a unique collection of cheerful animals. They do look very happy. The colors are bright, which makes you feel more happiness when you see bright colors rather than dark brown and black and things like that. If you have a collection of something, it's countable. It just means you have a group of interesting things or beautiful objects that you have brought together. Tom knows this. I've said this before, but I have a collection of pigs. Some are made out of different materials. I have a pig hat. I have a pig made of jade and wood. I just have different pigs. So people will collect different things. Of course, some boys, some girls too, have baseball card collections, or some people collect stamps. Museums have collections that are some of the most beautiful items in the whole world. Those are usually too expensive for regular people to collect.
Speaking of myself, I have a collection, albeit a small collection, of Buddha images. I find the image of of the Buddha, quite relaxing, so I have a small collection of Buddha images. And in this particular case, though, he's got a collection of cheerful animals. Remember, he did not have any carving skills before, but he was still able to produce a very special or unique collection or assembly, a gathering of cheerful animals.
A group.
A group of all these different animals. And of course, if you have lots of different animals on a carousel, hey, it becomes more interesting that way. Although the standard animal that you have to have on a carousel is a horse. You've got to have the horse there, or else it just isn't a carousel.
Yeah, you got to have the horse. His carousel boasts or has. If you use this verb, boast something, it means you're proud of what you have. So his carousel boasts a dolphin, a rabbit, and a gorilla, among others. Those are unique animals for a carousel, actually. You don't usually see a dolphin or a rabbit for sure. And a gorilla is very unique too. So the welcoming gorilla holds out one arm to embrace a space large enough for a wheelchair. So Scott Harrison also provided for those kids who were in wheelchairs or had some sort of disability, which is awesome. If you embrace something, that's a verb that you use to talk about hugging something. So you can embrace something or hug something. So it was big enough for a wheelchair, which is awesome. This is one of the creative ways that Harrison has made the carousel inviting and more accessible. Yeah, if something's accessible, you can get to it. It's something that you can use, something that's maybe even kind of convenient. So it's awesome that he used his creative skills or abilities to make a carousel for kids who sometimes don't have the opportunity to ride a carousel because they're in a wheelchair. Now, if you're creative, Tom, what does that mean?
You know how to come up with new ideas, and you can use your creativity in a lot of different ways. Creative is the adjective. To create is the verb. You make things, you have ideas and things like that. And the noun form is creativity. But here, creative is an adjective, and he has lots of creative ways to make that carousel interesting and inviting and to make it more accessible. So if you're creative, we say that you should probably seek a career in art or something like that. But remember, you can be creative in pretty much any field.
Yeah.
You can be creative in business, come up with new ways to save money, to cut corners, to hire new employees and stuff like that, to come up with new advertising campaigns or whatever. So here, creative again is an adjective and creativity is the noun. But of course, he wanted to attract people to this carousel because maybe people aren't so excited by carousels anymore. We've got roller coasters and exciting rides like that. Carousel, you just sit on this horse and it spins in circles and you listen to this music and then it's over. Kids like it, but maybe adults would be bored by it.
Oh, it's just for kids, guys, but it makes me happy to think there's someone out there still coming up with cute ways to make a carousel or a merry-go-round, as we call it, too. If you're dedicated, it means you're committed to something, to a task or a goal, and you don't just give up. So it took a lot of hard work and dedication for Scott to bring his dream of peace to life. So, yeah, it sounds like he really was able to bring his dream of peace to life and to offer it to other people as well. People out there who are perhaps anxious about life or sad about life. We don't always have smooth and easy times in our lives. Sometimes we have to go through difficulties, and he wanted to offer his hard work and his vision, his creativity and dedication to other people by creating this Carousel of Happiness. I'd actually like to go see it. I live in Arizona, which is pretty close to Colorado. It's not that far away. So it's something that I think I'd want to go and check out if I'm in that area or in the neighborhood. Well, what does Scott do today? He shares that piece of joy with as many people as possible through the Carousel of Happiness. And if you look online, you can see lots of pictures of the Carousel of Happiness. It sounds like it's gotten quite a bit of publicity.
Indeed, and I'm not quite sure where Nederland is in the state of Colorado. If I had known that, I may have gone there myself a couple of years ago, way before the pandemic. I went to Colorado to visit my brother who lived in Denver at the time, and we rented a car and drove to Utah to see the arches there, and we went down to Four Corners and Monument Valley and things like that. So maybe I passed through Nederland and didn't even know it, but again, that was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, so maybe that carousel was not finished by then.
Well, we hope you get a chance to look it up and maybe one day get out to Colorado and take a look and sit on one of those unique animals. Right now, guys, it's time to listen one more time to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back.
虽然这个 Scott Harrison 他以前没有雕刻过，但是他却仍然制作了一批很独特并且令人愉快的动物哦。比如说，他的旋转木马上面就有海豚啊、兔子、大猩猩等等。这个大猩猩呢，还伸出一只手臂，拥抱一个可以容纳轮椅的空间。不过在这里啊，第二段第二句的地方是我们的第三题。第三题这里根据上下文的文意，我们选 A 的 even though， 或者是所谓 even if。文意是比较通顺的。A 选项的 even though 就是虽然即使，虽然他之前没有雕刻过，但是他还是创造出了很多动物。好，那么接下来我们就看到第四题咯，考你几个形容词。那么这个形容词呢，当然会跟题目整个的句子的文意会有很大的相关性。不过这个第四题我们刚刚有特别提到，这是 Harrison 的一个创意的想法，所以我们先看一下4这个句子。那么在刚好第二段第4句的地方，其实它是一个限定用法的关系子句。句子本来蛮单纯，就是 This is one of the creative ways 后面的 that 到句尾其实可以先左右括号。其实句子本来很单纯，就是这就是创意做法的其中一种，而我们从 that 到句尾带了一个限定用法的关系子句，先行词就是 one of the creative ways。那么后面的 that 一直到最后面第4格，为什么第4格要选第一答案的 accessible 呢？因为其实在4往前一点点有一个 and 就是连接左边的 inviting， 很吸引人，跟第4格这个形容词，所以这样子的做法会让这个旋转木马 the carousel 更吸引人 inviting， 更能够接近 accessible， 在文意上才会是比较通顺的。好，那么接着当然是透过努力，透过付出，透过奉献，它才使和平的梦想成真。而现在呢，透过旋转木马，就尽可能的跟越来越多人分享这样子的和平跟喜悦。好，那么来到第5题，我们根据 A、B、C、D 4个选项，选 B 的 bring something to life， 让什么什么可以成真，把什么什么弄活了。Bring something to life， 在这里当然因为是 dream 想法的关系，所以选 B， 让他的梦想可以成真。不过最后面呢，我们在同样这一题第5题的这个地方啊，在句子最后面，我们看到一个 as possible 的用法。好，我们来看第2段，在最后一句的地方，本来应该有 joy with， 和谁分享喜悦呢？With many people， 很多人，但是这个很多人是如何呢？是尽可能的多人，所以插入了一个 as 什么什么 as possible 的片语。所以如果我们大家对于旋转木马很有兴趣的话，不妨可以找一些影片或者是网络上的照片，就可以了解更多有关于这个幸福旋转木马的事情哦。以上是我们今天的内容，我是安娜，我们下次见。
Okay, everybody, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today, and hopefully we have inspired you to head to your nearest amusement park and go for a spin on a carousel.
Yeah.
Or if travel restrictions have been lifted, you might head to the state of Colorado yourself and go to Nederland and check out this Carousel of Happiness. Hey, maybe you'll become happy as a result as well, or maybe come up with a similar idea if you are suffering from some kind of stress. Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Thanks for listening. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.